Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about how the zodiac sign Aries manipulates, at least how I believe they can. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Now, first off, I just want to let people know and understand that this is not about finding out, like, if you're the sign I'm talking about, how you should manipulate somebody. Not at all. What this is if you're somebody that knows a person connected with the sign I'm talking about, in this case Aries, sun, moon, or ascendant, you could be a little bit cognizant perhaps of ways they may potentially try to manipulate you. So anyway, well, I think the first off, naturally, Aries can manipulate by sheer physical intimidation and coercion, just acting in a volatile manner. It could be just, breaking a glass or doing something in front of you that might, an angry action. It could just be yelling. These are ways where Aries will try to manipulate you and try to put fear into your heart so you may not mess with them. Now, one example I really think of that really epitomizes this Aries energy is the former NFL player Lyle Alzado, who has a sun in Aries. I would not be surprised if he had an Aries ascendant as well. But anyway, classic example. Many of you may remember him. He was an ex-NFL player. He got into a number of physical confrontations during his career, whether it be on or off the football field. I remember him in a game, I believe it was against my New York Jets, where he tore someone's helmet off their head and got in his face, and this was just one of his, you could almost say, iconic, acrimonious moments. And wow, when I think back of him, the grand and positive side, he was a very fierce competitor. Aries are notorious. They are known to be very competitive. And their fearlessness can help them get through much adversity and win many battles. But, you look at this, Alzado, there was a time when I heard, it was on, I guess it was some documentary or something about him, that he would wear numerous shirts, or it might have been a blog or an article. But anyway, it stated something about him wearing numerous shirts at once to make himself appear bigger than he actually was. And now Aries will often do that. I don't know if I'm not saying all Aries are stereotyped, but this is a way where Aries can make themselves more intimidating, whether it's wearing more shirts or whether it's working out vigorously, getting their body sculpted and thicker, making themselves more imposing. This is the way that Aries likes to manipulate and get themselves to look more prodigious than and says more than they actually are, more imposing. And as I stated before, they may simply just blow up in front of somebody just to keep others at bay that may be in the distance, just to let them know in their own way that they're somebody to be reckoned with and not to be messed with, and at least at that particular point in time. Now, Aries also is a sign that is known to be very active and energetic. I would say Aries and Leo are really, they're the two most energetic signs of the zodiac and have the most vitality on average. Leo's energy could be nearly indefatigable and inexorable, and I think Aries is right there with them. Aries can manipulate in a way through competitive means by letting others expend their energy. I believe I do see Aries in, like, say, in sports competition. I could see Aries often, naturally having more energy and vitality than their opponent. Now, say in a basketball game, what I'd be referring to as the person that is guarding him or her. And now it's really this could be in a situation like that, Aries, I could see them winning that one-on-one battle a lot against their opponent, because they could just allow that opponent to expend their energy playing well. Aries just is able to just keep going and going often because they're often so vital and so energetic. Now, again, we're talking about, as far as the anger thing with Aries, I think some other examples. Many of you may remember when Bill Romanowski had played. He was a former NFL player, and he punched somebody, I think it was in a practice, against his own teammate, punched somebody and did something to his eye socket or something, and wound up it ended the other football player's career. And Marcus Camby, best of my knowledge, son, he is a Sun in Aries, and Bill Romanowski, again, Sun in Aries. Marcus Camby, a former NBA player. I remember one time when he went at some player, apparently the other player did something to Marcus Camby and drew blood, and when Marcus Camby saw that, I guess he saw red, figuratively speaking, and maybe literally more ways than one, and he went after that player, and he inadvertently, I think he ran into the head coach, Jeff Van Gundy, and like head-butted him, I think, inadvertently, which is kind of ironic, because Aries often does lead with the head, and if you notice when Aries actually walks, I don't know how many of you actually notice this, but they seem to go with their head, they're bent over, and the head is kind of going further out than the rest of the body in many cases. And the head is almost like a battering ram is what it actually essentially is, it seems like, in a lot of cases. But the point I'm making is that after that moment, and a moment like with Bill Romanowski, his experience, and Marcus Camby, another Sun in Aries experience, is that I think what happens is when people see this kind of behavior, that's what causes them to back off, and that is kind of like this way of manipulation, whether in some cases may actually be intended or not. It keeps others at bay from Aries and not to mess with them, because they get that reputation for that truculent behavior. Now also, it could be very easy for Aries also to manipulate others into an argument. Now, Aries can say something so abrupt, so outspoken, that so often what this can do often, it'll compel most people to say something back to them, to give them a rebuttal, because they feel like they almost have to respond to it, because the remark that was made to them was just so abrupt and so outspoken that they just don't feel that there's any other choice in the matter. Now, and they might actually manipulate you into committing a volatile action against them and get you into some kind of trouble, which of course could be legal repercussions and consequences. Now, also, Aries also may be very adept at getting others to compete with them in something that they know that they can win. Now, Aries, when I see Aries, they often love to be victorious in something, because they are the first sign of the zodiac, and they often, they like to be first in things. Now, I've previously, and these are, whether it could be in a basketball game or football or what have you, and they have that ability to conquer and win. So they will often, I see Aries as that, as that sign very frequently will cajole others to get them into a competition. They may say, well, it's all right, well, this is just for fun or whatever. And yeah, Aries can have fun. They can, they could have their own little childlike whimsical qualities, but because it's so in them to conquer, when to be, not just be competitive, but to actually be triumphant and win. Whether it's a battle or competition, they see, even I think recreational competition is more of a battle to them, more so than the other signs of the zodiac on average. So what they'll do is they'll get you into something thinking it's going to be competitive and this and that. It's just recreational, just fun. And they'll lure you into something that they believe they can beat you at. I do believe that very often. Now, and they love to be victorious, as they are the first sign of the zodiac and love to be first. Now, I've talked previously about how actors and actresses, they may be subconsciously or even consciously at times drawn to roles that may correspond with their astrological energies. Now, Aries Moon and Ascendant actor Jon Voight is no exception. Now, many of you may remember he starred in a movie called Runaway Train. Now, in that movie, he played, from what I remember, he was a prison escapee who went on essentially as a runaway train, so to speak. In doing so, he lures somebody, and I guess it was some law enforcement or what have you, onto the train. And the person, obviously in law enforcement, was attempting to apprehend him. What happened was, the person that was trying to capture Jon Voight and apprehend him wound up being outmaneuvered. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. Anyway, now it was in the dark from what I remember, and the guy was at a disadvantage that Jon Voight was fighting. The man wound up being pummeled by Jon Voight, and Aries. I mean, and what happened was he wound up cuffing him. I believe either chain or he cuffed him up. Jon Voight cuffed the guy up. And he wound up actually, I mean, that was another example of winning and finding a way to conquer and win a battle. And Aries energy, of course, can be very adept at that. And also, what happened was, and really the thing about it is what this is about too, is that Aries may set up or manipulate a situation where they can emerge triumphant. And really where they could win that battle. And I think, as I stated before, I really do strongly believe the actors and actresses are often consciously, if not subconsciously, they are drawn to these roles that really just correspond with those astrological energies they have. Now, it's also important to see the house cusp Scorpio falls in on a solar or natal chart, is this could indicate the area or sector in life where one may actually be proficient in the art of manipulation. Now, in a solar or natal chart, Scorpio will often fall on the 8th house cusp for Aries. Aries can often be, I mean, very sexual, of course, being ruled by Mars. Now, I think with Aries, a lot of this manipulation may come in the bedroom. And manipulation, Scorpio, of course, 8th house is sex. Manipulation may come in the bedroom in connection with their sexual partner, someone they're in an intimate sexual relationship with. Now, they may threaten the sexual partner that sex may be withheld from him or her if you don't do such and such for them. I think also Scorpio often being on the 8th house cusp in a solar natal chart for Aries, that could also manifest perhaps in manipulation through psychological means. It could be getting a psychological advantage, for example, over a competitor or some adversary or opponent in sports. It could be that one way could simply be continually defeating the opposition, getting in that person's head, so to speak, or that team's head, and not show mercy in the process. Aries is not exactly known for their compassion and mercy or sympathy. They, if they're on a team, and whether it's hockey or it's basketball or football or something or any sport, they're often going to be one of the ones that are going to keep pouring it on, so to speak, because it's not that Aries is completely cold or callous, but they don't believe in letting up in terms of something of a competitive nature. They will keep at you and keep at you. They're not about being merciful. Unlike maybe like a Pisces or a Cancer, say. They will just keep going because they're in a battle to win, and whether it's dominating or annihilating the team, if it's winning close, they're going to do whatever it takes often to win that battle, and that could be in a competition as well. Now, also too, it's also important to look at the house cusp Pisces falls on, because this is where one could be adept at deception and duplicity, which could be tied into manipulation, of course. Now, Pisces often falls on the 12th house cusp in a solar or natal chart for Aries. Now, I think the way this manifests in a very negative manifestation for Aries, they may prey on the weak, as Aries can be, I see Aries often having very strong hatred and animosity toward weaker or passive people, because it can just simply be attributed to lack of respect for them, I believe, in many cases. They may be apt to deceive those which have limitations and restrictions, kind of like a bullying, like one of those siding salespeople that come to like an elderly person's or debilitated person's home, and they wind up getting the person to sign up for something and talking them into it without, barely getting consent from the person, without elaborating on the details, just hurrying up, getting the signature, whatever, and may not even show up to do the work. Now, I'm talking about that in a very negative manifestation and using that as an example, but you understand what I'm talking about. They will take advantage of. They see somebody often that they see as gullible, that might be naive, that might be weak-minded, that might be very passive. Those are the people they will often try to manipulate and deceive, I think. That is just how I see it. Now, another thing too about Aries, what's interesting is that, now I want to go that by being the best, Aries often wants to be at the top, whatever it is they do, the first sign of the zodiac. They may inadvertently, unwittingly, not maliciously manipulate others this way, but I'm going to explain. You look at some people, Aries, I think, can often inspire others to be better because they often like to lead and like to be number one in whatever it is they're doing. You take Sun and Aries Peyton Manning, for example. He has the NFL record currently for passing touchdowns. You take Sun and Aries, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, number one all-time in National Basketball Association career points scored. Then you take former MLB player Pete Rose, who has his Sun and Ascendant in Aries. He's the all-time MLB hits leader. So you get the idea, and what this often does is can give others incentive and inspire others to be number one because they have motivation to try to surpass them. So I think Aries could be very inspirational that way. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment on how I believe the zodiac sign Aries manipulates. Stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be talking about how I believe the zodiac sign Taurus manipulates. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.